Welcome to another episode of How I Discovered My Gift with yours truly, David D. Simons. My excited is excited for today's guest, my new friend and brother, John Marsch. We thank you so much for coming on the show. Let me tell you about John, y'all. John is a man of God. He's a podcaster extraordinaire. You're going to hear all about the Two Comma Club podcast, which I've also had the privilege to be on. He's a phenomenal podcaster. He has a background in finance, had 10K in debt, and was able to turn around and do some of the great things that he's doing today. And you guys are going to learn more about who he is and how he's going to show you how his gifts have taken him to heights that he's achieved, and how you can too learn the gifts that God has given you and monetize those gifts. So, John, thank you so much for being on the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. Appreciate it.
No doubt, bro. No doubt. So I want to start, man, with discovery, right? Like discovering this gift that you have. Take before we get into that fully, take me to your childhood, man, growing up, and your story, man, and just who you are.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to. So, first and foremost, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I've lived in about the same 30-minute radius my entire life. The three major segments that I really had growing up were predominantly about 0 to 7 years old. We lived in one house, and my family was growing. It was just me and my younger sister, who's 5 years younger than me. And during that time period, I learned a lot about kind of just the way the world works, right? Like you're 0 to 7, you're trying to get in there and everything. And I learned a lot of things about the world. Most importantly, I learned about the love that my parents had for me, right? So like, I remember like even as an adult looking back on tapes that my dad used to take of like Christmas and stuff like that. Like we'd see it all throughout the little house we had and everything. And like by no means were we what I would consider to be poor, but at the same time, like there were some things that we just didn't have, like a couch in the living room, for example, right? We had like lawn furniture and stuff like that. And I remember little things like that. And then seeing the fact that when Christmas rolls around, you watch the same tape and same footage, and all of a sudden there's like an infinite amount of presents under the Christmas tree for their one kid that they had at the moment, which was me. And it's so wild to see like the hearts with which they give to me and my sister throughout the years. So that's been one theme that has rubbed off on me. And in that, I've always been able to kind of see the good in people, right? So as we fast forward a bit more and we head toward the high school years, ultimately, I think this is where I really started to dive in and understand like how to build relationships with people, right? One of the big things that I always wanted was like a brother, right? Somebody who was literally like my right hand man. I know when the world comes at us, like we got each other's backs and stuff like that. And that led me to develop several really good friendships. Like I had off the top of my head, like I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 different bros that like we hung out on a regular and everything. And like whenever we needed to do something or we wanted to just go to Target, it's like, hey man, like let's go get some groceries. They're like, yeah, man, let's do it. So it was a good time. And you know, my dad at that age, I remember watching him. I guess I need to retrace my steps here for a second. I apologize. But 2008, 2009 was the recession. And, everybody experienced that. The housing market crashed and everything. And like what that looked like in my home might not have been the same as everyone else's, but this is how it went. Ultimately, we were at a point where my mom worked in corporate America. My dad had a construction company, and the work on my dad's side slowed to pretty much a complete halt, had no more income coming in on that end. And my mom was let go of her position just because the economy was in such a bad state. So I remember at that age, I couldn't have been any older than like, 10, 12, somewhere around there. And I was old enough to recall them frantically running around the house trying to figure out like, what's the next thing we're gonna be able to do for food and things of that nature. And we had just upgraded to a nicer home and all this other stuff. So like expenses were higher. And there wasn't a whole lot of conversation around money talks in the house other than whenever we needed it, it was a big rush to try to find it. Um, it's funny how God works, man, because we were this close to losing our house, and God kind of connected some dots in some ways, right? So ultimately, my great uncle who lived in Santa Barbara, California, he had built up his company, had amassed a good net worth. He proceeded to get stomach cancer, and he had been battling with it for about a year or so before he passed away, which was extremely unfortunate. But in God's grace, when we lost him, we actually inherited just enough money to be able to get from the point where we were at that time to a spot where my parents got work again and we had money coming in again. And so we literally lived on that nest egg that we inherited just long enough to the final penny where like things turned around. And it's funny how that works in life, right? So, I had seen during that time period, my dad was a great example of uh, what it looks like to work hard and adapt to difficult circumstances. So ultimately, he was in construction and he had all of his workflow come to a complete halt. So he proceeded to shift gears and go to this place called mycomputercareer.com. And
Mm-hmm.
in his like late 40s, early 50s, he's the oldest dude in the room and he's in there just like cranking away on all these certifications, just trying to get in there so he can start making money again for the household and just really show him what it looks like to persevere in those adverse times, if you will. So that really left a big impression on me. And what's funny is the moment he finished, all the work came back. And so like he just went right back to doing construction, which was great. And that was great for years to come because I got to work with him. So there were a lot of good memories that I have with my dad doing that, which is really cool. But one of the things during that time period that really rubbed off after seeing the adversity of how we almost lost a house and seeing the adversity of how he had to adapt in new circumstances, he basically told me something I'll never forget. And it was one of the wisest things that I think I've ever heard him say in his entire life. And it was to work smarter, not harder. And I was like, okay, like, I love that. I see how much he cares. I know he's coming from only the place of like wanting to give. He has nothing to receive from that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm going to really embody that. So as I got into my later teen years toward the end of high school and everything, I have this lens through which I'm looking at the world and I'm trying to see like what is a way to work smarter rather than working harder.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to be a gamer by chance? You
I
ever play games?
was I was big Madden guy, FIFA, more sports.
Yeah, you ever play GTA by chance?
Oh
Grand Theft
yeah.
Auto?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was big time.
Yeah. So I'm 28 right now. I'll be 29 next week. But when I was like I think a junior or senior in high school, they came out with Grand Theft Auto 5 for the first time. They've only come out with it like 5 times or whatever. But
Right.
the point being that I played that game, and what's interesting is in the storyline, they showcased what the stock market is used for. Because if you play the game right, what ends up happening is by the end of it, you can become a billionaire, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the way you do it is you do the things that are illegal in the video game, whatever. But the stock market is how you become the billionaire, right? You literally take whatever amount of money you manage to have and you multiply your money in the stock market. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, this is a great example of how to work smarter, not harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got it from a video game. So I'm like, all right, graduate high school and everybody's telling me like, you got to go to college, you got to get a good job. That's the way the world works, whatever. And I had given into that idea, proceeded down that road. And the next thing I know, um, I have a bill for $110,000 in student loans for a 4-year degree in finance. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want this. Like, this is a lot of pain and I got to solve this problem. Right.
Right.
And I don't see anybody around me who has similar debts. Like, my friends that I grew up with, a lot of them either had their parents be able to pay for their schooling or they had scholarship opportunities that exceeded mine. Now, first and foremost, I don't think I made the best decision. And when I went to school, I went to a private school, a liberal arts college, and I had about half of it paid for in scholarships from doing good grades and stuff in high school, but
Yeah.
that still left me with 110,000 in student loans, which is crazy. So, my ideal situation was using the gift that I had discovered as pattern recognition, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was really good at numbers and things of that nature, which I developed in school when I realized that about middle school, they took me from the normal math classes to like algebra one, I think in
Wow.
seventh grade, and then geometry in eighth grade. And then I was doing algebra two by my freshman year of high school, pre-calculus sophomore year, like all this stuff. Mind you, what's funny about it is I got my first F on a report card in algebra one because I couldn't understand why all of a sudden we're mixing numbers and letters. I'm like, well, what is this X doing here next to this 11? This makes no sense,
Right.
right? But I later discovered a way to kind of understand it. It was like imagine the numbers and the letters are like people that are wearing like Halloween costumes, right? The X is just a Halloween costume, and if you like take the mask off, you can see what number it is. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Wow.
So made it a lot easier to understand, which came in hand later when I wanted to like do the stock market stuff, right? So as far as like the first point in time that I can ever remember exercising my gift of pattern recognition was in the stock market stuff.
Mm.
Um, when I was a kid, I used to sit down with these, they called them number scrolls in preschool. And
Yeah.
basically, you literally just like, you have a scroll that's an endless piece of paper, kind of looks like toilet paper, but it's not. And you just write like numbers and you just count forever, right? And
Mhm.
so numbers kind of like are the way that I remember things really easily.
Mm.
Um, so I proceed to go to college. I have my entire high school savings of about 2 grand,
Mhm.
and my dad is patiently watching me start an investment account. He's like, okay, like I'm interested to see what you're going to do with this because up to this point, he has deemed me as what he would consider to be, relatively smart when it comes to numbers and things. So he's like, I wonder if he can figure it out.
Mm.
So I go and I take my entire savings of $2,000 out of high school. I put it in the stock market. I bought Shake Shack when they did their IPO.
Mm.
And in that same day, um, the entire stock went up 10%. And I put
Mm.
all $2,000 into it. So I made $200, which
Yeah.
blew my mind at the time because I was also working an internship for State Bank for like $9 an hour for an
Mm.
8 hour shift. I was going to make like $50. And
Mm.
then I made 200 from clicking a couple buttons. I'm
Wow.
like, dude, working smarter, not harder, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Um,
right there. Wow.
yeah. So, what's funny about it is like, that was what I would consider to be relatively luck for the most part, right?
Mhm.
And I sold it that same day. I secured the 200. I was so excited about it. I came home to my parents. I'm like, "Look at it. I figured it out. Like work smarter, not harder, right?" And my dad was so excited that he's like, "Awesome. Here's another $1,000 of our money. Go ahead and like, do that again." And I'm like, "Sweet. I got $3,200 to play with.
Yeah.
How can I get more leverage on this, right?"
Mm.
And being completely new to how the stock market actually works, I was
Mhm.
like, let's do penny stocks. So I took all the money I found. At the time, everybody was talking about moving green and things of this nature. And I found a penny stock that was like 44 cents per share. And I thought, oh my God, we can get a bajillion shares for, $3,200 at 44 cents. So I went and I put all the money in there. And the next thing I know, it just starts boop, 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 boop. And we lost literally every single penny. So I was like, yo, screw this stock market stuff. Like, it's not happening. I'm done. I'm out. So I
Wow.
threw it all to the side and, quit for a while. But then, as God does, He redirects you on a path that He wants you to be on. So, because I'm in school for finance, He showed me what's called a stock market simulator,
Mm.
or a paper trading account, which
Yeah.
allows you to trade real time with fake money. So, you get all of the experience and none of the risk.
That's
And I
right.
was like, perfect. Like, I don't have any money to invest anymore anyway. I know what it's like to get burned. I don't want to do that again. But
Right.
like, I lost, so now I want to win.
Mm.
Like, so
Mm.
I went in with this mentality, and for the next, I don't know how many months, it was a 4 month class, and I did a couple of them while I was there. I didn't, to be completely honest, I didn't really learn much of anything in the classroom itself, but
Mhm.
having access to the tool and being able to apply myself was
Right.
what made all the difference. And by the time that I was done, I had set the record that the investment professor had ever seen. I took a fake simulated balance of $500,000 and turned it into 1.3 million in 2 days shy of a month. And so like I figured it out, right? And I was all excited. I got out of school, and the next thing I know, I'm like, all right, working smarter, not harder looks like being able to save some money, put it in the market, and then multiply it there. And that was like kind of the pattern that I took for a while.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I discovered that gift. Yeah.
Wow. Dude, that's amazing. So, as you're discovering this gift of pattern recognition, I know that applies to multiple things. Like it's definitely advantageous in numbers, but it's also applied to probably recognizing patterns of people or patterns in. Can you speak to us about other ways that you saw this gift of pattern recognition in action?
Yeah, I think I have a good friend. It's been a good friend of mine for like over 10 years. And I remember I had been around him in a lot of rooms, and he's like 6'4", handsome dude, well built, all this stuff. And like he walks in a room, and the entire energy of the room changes. And like all he does is just walk in, and everybody's staring at him and super excited. And it's just like he emits this energy of just pure positivity that attracts everyone into him and everything.
Mm,
And it's amazing. And so I couldn't help but notice that. And I'm like, I like people. My approach to people is that I genuinely believe that every single one of us would do the best we can with the moment we have. And we do that.
mhm,
But the reason why we might act differently than one another is due to the fact that we have had different experiences in this life. And so that is the one determining factor as to why it is that we might be acting a little different than one another, right?
mhm,
So, with that being said, when he walks into a room, he's doing something different, and it's some kind of gold nugget that I want to know. And I think that everybody has a gold nugget. And I'm like, that's part of the reason why I love podcasting. I'm like, everybody has a gold nugget. I want to find yours so I can be better and then show people that too, right? So ultimately, I remember we went to so many different social events like the Arnold here in Columbus, Ohio, right? And
mhm,
we'd have him go running up to people and just chatting and whatever. And I'm paying attention to the way that he's talking to these people. And the pattern that I recognized was that he doesn't talk about himself.
mm,
He only asks questions.
mm,
That's it. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like,
mm,
that's so weird because now everybody has walked away feeling so positive and like happy and all these other things. And it all came from just asking questions.
mm,
And it was crazy. So that was that was something that I realized in that capacity. But when it comes to like building relationships, like you need to come from a place of being genuine, right? Like people, there's this I don't know how we would describe it, but there's like this subconscious nature that we all have where we know when somebody has bad intent and when
right,
somebody has good intent.
for
And
sure.
like you can do that whole asking questions thing, but like if you're doing it to manipulate people, it's gonna show.
That's
And
right.
then like no matter how many questions you ask, people are just gonna be like, yo, step off, you know?
Right.
So yeah, you gotta be good intent with that.
That's awesome, man. So you recognize this gifting in your friend. Did you ever tell him what you noticed, or how did what happened there? I'm just curious.
Yeah, 100%. So I did actually tell him, I was like, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been studying you for a little bit. I'm like, I've noticed how you light up these rooms and everything and like this and that. And then I asked him, I'm like, so like, do you realize that all you do is ask questions? And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, do you realize what's happening as a result of this? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, I come to find out that this is a framework that he himself had developed throughout the years that he uses on a regular basis, is completely consciously aware of. And
Mm,
so he does it in every circumstance because
mm,
he's a genuine dude. He has a good heart. And like all he wants to do is make the world a brighter place. That's it. Like that's him in a nutshell. And so he uses it for the good in that capacity. And it's fascinating.
respect. So for yourself, I mean, just curious, does this have an effect and impact for you in how you got into podcasting as well? And yeah, break that down for us.
Yeah. So, oh boy. Um, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So, I apologize in advance. I do ramble,
Yeah.
as we
Oh,
might have seen from the intro a little. Anyway, the point being that this, all of my story kind of is tied to an event that you're familiar with, and maybe someone in the audience is, called Funnel Hacking Live, right? So, to give a little bit of backstory here, after college, I went into corporate America. I was successful with my smarter, not harder strategy of investing, and I enabled myself the opportunity to essentially buy an extended period of time where I didn't have to work if I didn't want to, and
mm,
I exercised it. And as I got to the end of that rope, I had ultimately decided that I wanted to help other people be able to do a similar thing with the financial stuff that I had learned. So I was seeking the understanding of how to market that and get it in people's hands. So that's how I came across the ClickFunnels world. In doing so, um, I had come to Funnel Hacking Live the first time in Orlando in 22, and I had a whole like literal come to Jesus moment. Don't need to go into it too crazy. All you need to know is that I went to church and I received a very specific message, and it was basically the idea that there's a difference between blind faith and tested faith. And up to that point, I had been living my life in what I would consider to be the blind faith. Like if God said jump, I jumped. I didn't need to do anything crazy. He was just testing my willingness to act when he said act, right? But that looks very different when he tells you to do something crazy, like put yourself in harm's way, as in like going into debt and things of that nature. Now it's less about blind faith and it's more about tested faith, because you have to trust God to deliver you from the circumstances that he's asking you to go into. And so ultimately that first event required me to use the skill set that previously served me to raise money to be able to even afford to go to the event, because I had used all of my savings to get there. So I basically used the stock simulator again to showcase that I could invest money, so that way I could borrow money, but not just a little bit of money, like a significant amount of money, so I could invest it so I could pay back the person I borrowed the money from. And so I took this investment simulator with a starting balance of $1 million, and I turned it into 3 million. I want to say it was in about 2 months, roughly. And so from that, I was able to showcase that was the case, secured the financing, and I was tested, and I went to this Funnel Hacking Live. And so I go there, and I remember, being there, knowing that I have just borrowed all of this money. I have just burned the boats, and I'm now officially in debt. And God has called me to take a tested leap of faith. And I'm like, okay, like, here we go. I have to make this event something. I don't know what this is. I don't know why he's called me to be here. I know why I want to be here, because I want to learn marketing to teach people this finance stuff, but his plan, not mine. So I go there and I'm by myself, first time doing a solo travel trip, first conference ever. And I remember walking in and just experiencing, like, seeing people in the hallways and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, these are my people. Like, everybody here gets it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it was amazing. And so I had taken the things that I had learned from my friend to ultimately get to know people and just ask questions. And I made none of it about me. And I just ran up and down the hallways all day, every day, like literally registration day, the day before the event began. I was in the hallway from when I got to the hotel at 8 a.m. until probably, 10 p.m. or whatever, and just running up and down, like meeting anyone and everyone, because I'm like, God called me to be here for a reason. I got to figure out what this is. So every time I just went up to people and I just said, hey, I'm John, and I'd shake their hand and then like ask them questions about themselves. And that's all I did for a whole day. Made a lot of cool connections and everything, but it got me in this place where I'm developing relationships in that respect, like planting seeds, if you will, right? Which is fascinating because a lot of them came full circle recently, which will be cool to talk about later. So that was the first year. And that was just an example of like how some of the things I had been learning kind of influenced me to get there. But what's crazier, I want to preface this. I don't know if this is something that we can put in the description of the podcast here, but there's a video that I watched, and it was a pastor on stage, and he shared this concept of these 3 doors. Okay. And we'll go into what these are as we talk about this story. But the first one was a manual door. And this was, to me, receiving this video and watching this message was like God kind of highlighting, hey, this is the test that I just issued. Here's what the road ahead looks like, right? This is kind of like that map. So door number 1 is, as the pastor said in this video, a manual door. What's unique about it is that it requires effort, and you have to give it everything that you have and then some. And so what that was for me was I literally used my entire runway of all of my cash savings and everything I had done for years, and then it's gone. Now I have to borrow money to be able to persevere into this spot. And that's how I afforded to go to Funnel Hacking Live my first time. So then what's interesting about it is in this video, he talks about the second door. And he said the second door is not a manual door, it's a revolving door. the thing that's interesting about this is it doesn't require any effort, but it does require timing.
Mm.
And this blew my mind. So fast forward past Funnel Hacking Live the first time, and the second time I go there, about 6 months beforehand, me and my business partner at the time decided that we didn't know enough about the marketing world. We weren't doing well in business. Like, we should probably shift gears and drop the stock market thing. Like,
Yeah.
let's just go see how we can help or add value to people. So we go in there and we come up with this idea where we're just going to find a list of names and we're just going to cold call people and just like see how we can help or add value with the new skills we have. Cause we've been building funnels for a year and a half and like all this stuff and whatever. So the first place I think of to go cold call is a list of realtors that you can find online. And again, nothing to sell, just purely trying to figure out how I can help or add value with this new skill set, trying to figure out where God's trying to take us. In the first hour of cold calling that day, I proceeded to find one of my current business partners by the name of Chris Davison. And he is a real estate investor that has about $12 million worth of real estate. And what's crazy about it, talk about divine intervention, the number that's listed on this is a number that is specific to the office that he works with, but he's not hardly ever there. I think he said he shows up like once a month. And when he is there, he doesn't get any direct calls because there's the admin at the front, the secretary, who can actually like take the calls and all that stuff. So timing wise, I happened to call again, first hour of cold calling. And not only was he at the office, but the secretary who would normally take the call was on a call. So she forwarded it to him. So I actually got his direct line. And I'm just like, hey, I'm John. I can help or add value in these ways, kind of things. Like, I was asking him, obviously, if he needed any help or whatever. And I'm like, these are my skill sets. I mentioned the word ClickFunnels. And he's like, wait a second. Like, I've heard that. It was a mentor of his who is in like the raising capital space.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember his name. It's eluding me at this moment. But ultimately, that sold him. He's like, yo, let's get lunch, right? And the next thing I know, for the next 6 months, we're working together to like put something together. And when it comes time to want to launch it, I'm like, I got this crazy idea, take it or leave it. But like, we could launch it at Funnel Hacking Live. There's a lot of individuals there who could use the help of a real estate investor like yourself and like get into more asset wealth management stuff. So like, if you're open to it, I'd love to do it. Problem is, I don't have any money. Like, I'm broke as a joke. I've maxed out all my credit cards, all these things, taking this complete leap of faith. And so what ends up happening is he goes for it. And the next thing I know, he funds both of us and a third person to go to the trip who brought a camera. And what was insane about it, to tie this all back to your initial question,
Mm.
is the fact that when we got there, it was just like the first time where I'm running up and down the hallways, like networking with people. But what was different was that for some reason, I swear God was with me like the entire trip. It
Mm.
was insane.
Mm.
Every time I turned around, I ran into a 2 Comma Club award winner. Like,
Mm.
literally every time I turned around. First and foremost, very first person we ran into was Todd Dickerson.
Oh, wow.
Second person we ran into was Bart Miller, who we joined his accountability group, and that had a huge, profound impact on my life, which I'll share shortly. But then, like, literally every time I turned around, right? And my favorite story to share about this is crazy. Is you know how like you'll be on your phone, or not on your phone, you'll be talking to somebody. Like, if we sat here and we're like,
Right.
the newest AirPods are so amazing, like I'm so excited to get them and everything,
Right.
and like all of a sudden we like open our phone and the next thing you know, it's like there's the advertisement.
Yep.
Well, we had just got done watching somebody's presentation, and it reminded me of one of the presentations I saw the previous year that Christine Morel had performed. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm showing them like one of the funny ad skits that she does on my phone.
Yeah.
And then I turned around because I had to go to the bathroom, and I started walking away, and all of a sudden she appeared right in front of me.
Look
And
at
like we got to chat, got a photo and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I
wow.
just had the real world version of that. Like, it was nuts.
That is crazy.
Um, so yeah, so I basically I asked people. I had no intent other than to literally just get to know them. I wanted to know what was their gold nugget,
Right.
right? Like, I want to learn from them. They've clearly gotten, $1 million plus in their business, and like, I'm just a guy in the crowd. Like, I want to know what you have to say, because like, I want to learn from the smarter people in the room that have done the things, and that's it. So what was crazy was God connected me with all those people. So um yeah, I think that answers your questions in
Yeah.
the longest way possible. Um,
No, that's great. I do want to dig into that a little bit. So, what happened out of the outcome of you, Chris, and I believe your other partner coming to this, and is this where you is this was this the genesis of the Two Comma Club podcast?
Yes, it was. It was crazy. So, there were a few things that happened that ultimately led me to a conversation with a certain gentleman by the name of Jeff Armstrong. And so the very like literal last person that I met at this conference was Jeff Armstrong, and we just happened to be having a conversation. He tells me about this idea that he wants to do a challenge and all this stuff. So I offer to help him. I'm like, yo, I just want the experience. I want to see what a Two Comma Club award winner does differently than I've done in the past, and I got my answer by the end of it, which was great. But I offered to help for free, and I need to preface this really quick because the entire trip, it was like the voice of God was with me literally every time. He told me when to get up, who to go talk to. Like I literally heard a voice in my head. The best illustration I have of this, if you guys ever go check out the podcast, episode number 6, Brian Citron is his name. The way that I met him was we were standing in the big open hallway of this conference, and there's nobody in it except for me and the two guys I'm with, and we're talking to a fourth person. And all of a sudden, in this conversation, I hear go talk to him. And I know God's not talking about like everyone here. And I'm literally looking around like I literally do not see a singular other person in this room. But like this has been working all week. I've run into like 20 plus Two Comma Club award winners. Let me go see this. So I kind of like turn around. All the way down at the other end of the hallway is this dude who's standing there on his phone. I'm like, I guess that's him. So I go over there, I start talking to him, and the next thing I know, this dude's got this crazy awesome book that he just wrote. He just received his Two Comma Club award, like all this stuff, and we just start chatting. And months later, after I decided to start this podcast, he was guest number 6, right? And it was just like all these little seeds that got planted that I had no intent of like doing anything with. I just wanted another gold nugget.
Right.
So I illustrate that to get to this point. God not only at that conference told me to who to talk to and all those other things, he also told me, go get this video. And I'm like, okay. Like, and I'm getting chills right now because I remember it like it was yesterday. But like what it was, if anybody has been to Funnel Hacking Live or not, I want to illustrate this, and you can find it on my Instagram. The award, the Two Comma Club award, is for making $1 million in business in your revenue. There's also the 2 Comma X for 10 million and the 2 Comma C for either making 25, 50, 75, or 100 million. With that being said, everyone who's there to get their award is in this really long line inside of this giant conference center. And you just see all these people who have made, millionaire status basically just in line to get their award. And it's the craziest thing. It's like, oh my God, this is insanely possible. Like, these people are all proof that it's possible. Like you can do it too. You just got to figure out the how. So God told me to get a video of that line. And I'm like, okay, like who am I to say no to God? Right. So I did it, not knowing that I was going to do anything with it. To this point, my biggest fear was putting my face out there, being on social media. Like I didn't want to ever do it. I like the idea of my privacy and things of that nature. So I had no intent of it. So to bring this all back together, these are the assets or seeds that God gave me during this second FHL. One of them, again, was a gentleman by the name of Bart Miller. He was the very second person that we ever met. Chris, my buddy in real estate, was kind enough to extend an offer. Bart invited us to be in his accountability group, which is $200 a month. And at that point in time, I had bills coming up in a couple of weeks that were a few grand that I literally didn't have the money for. And Chris was kind enough to offer to pay my way to be in this group as well. And I was like humbled by it, really grateful to this day. But being in that group was what ended up kind of sparking the rest of what happened. So in this group, it's a 15-minute Monday through Friday call, and we discuss 2 things, and there's multiple people in it, so everybody has a turn. We say, what is your why, the reason why you do what you do, and then what is the one thing you're doing that day to move the needle forward in that. And I had not had an answer to what my why was. I knew what I was motivated by things and stuff, but didn't know it. At the time, I came up with something along the lines of like wanting to inspire people to live their lives by building funnels or something like that.
Right.
And what came next was nothing, right? Like nothing happened for like a couple weeks after I just got off this really big high of meeting all these people and doing all this stuff. And I'm getting really frustrated because that due date of when my bills are due is coming up sooner and sooner and sooner, and I don't have the money. And I'm not even getting my why right. Like I'm not inspiring anybody about anything. So I thought, you know what? let me just think of the most inspirational thing I can do right now, and let me just do that. And what I thought was that B-roll that God told me to get of the line was really inspirational because like I've seen it, it blew my mind. I'm like, let me show this to the world. So the next thing I do is I pull out my phone and I record my first ever video with my face on it and I post it publicly on TikTok. That night it got 10,000 views and it blew my mind. And I had seen previously, this is a gold nugget for anybody who's creating content, do this. Okay. Your Alex Hormozy basically said in one of the videos that I watched of him, he stated the fact that your best performing content will probably do really well again if you repost it. So I thought, okay, like gold nugget, who am I to say no to the man himself? Like, let me repost this. So I reposted it the next day. It got 25,000 views that day. So I reposted it the next day. I got 50,000 views that time. I thought, man, if it's doing this well on TikTok, let me go put it on Instagram. So I think the first time I got like 50,000 views. So that second time I got like 860,000 views.
Goodness.
And then from there, I just kept reposting it time and time again. And by the time that 30-day window was over, I had accumulated over 1 million views.
Wow.
It was insane. And not only that, but from those views, a couple things happened. First and foremost, there was a gentleman that reached out to me that wanted my services as a funnel builder, and I was able to sell him a package for $10,000 plus $200 a month. So my bills were covered, which was miraculous. And then on top of that, in the background of all this, I mentioned the Jeff Armstrong guy. So while those couple weeks are happening before I post this video, I'm actively working with Jeff for free behind the scenes, and we're just, building out his funnel. We're launching it. He's getting good results. We're both excited about it. And this video starts going viral at the same time that we're getting the results. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Like, clearly to me, the opening of this viral video is a sign from God that this is the direction that I need to go. I don't need to teach people about the stock stuff. I need to showcase this stuff. And I'm like, okay, so how can I move forward in this in the context of creating content with the resources that I have right now? And I realized that I have a really good relationship with a 2 Comma Club award winner now because I just helped him build something for free and he made a good amount of money. Maybe he wants to do an interview. So I sat back and we recorded the first ever podcast. Didn't have my mic set up, didn't have a good camera, just my laptop, barely had any questions prepared, did a basic Zoom. Not my best work by any means whatsoever, but we got it in the books and he dropped a ton of great value and I'm super stoked about it. Wow. But there's this pattern in my life with me where I, for some reason, take about 2 times to learn something, right? So it's like the first time it happens, I don't recognize it, but when it happens twice, I'm like, I've seen that before. That's important. So I wasn't completely sold yet on this podcast idea, right? I'm like, I've done one, but like, who am I going to talk to now? I know I got all these people that I just met at Funnel Hacking Live, but like, I don't really feel like I have, that connection with them yet to be able to invite them to do this. I don't know if they'll take me seriously or whatever. Yeah. So as the video is going viral, Junior Anthony, he proceeds to find this video and he's on vacation and he takes a moment from work and just gets on there and jumps in the comments section and is like, I'm getting a lot of hate first and foremost. It was helping my analytics go through the roof, which is great. But everybody's in there talking like, there's no way that all these millionaires are standing in line. If I was a millionaire, I'd never be in line and da-da-da-da and like all that crap. So Junior's in there just like, I'm in line. Like I'm one of those guys, and like whatever, and going back and forth with all these people. And it was funny. So I messaged him as a result of that. And the next thing I know, he was like, yeah, dude, let's do a Zoom call and we'll make it a podcast. And I'm like, sweet. So I got the second one and I'm like, all right, now that I've seen a pattern that I can do this as what I would consider to be a gift from God, because I don't believe that I curated this. I had no intent of going there, starting a podcast, no intent of meeting all these 2 Comma Club award winners, no intent of capturing that footage, none of it. And God just called me to do it. And I did it because I was obedient at that time and willing to let go of myself to do this. And this is what started happening. And now, as of, I think it was yesterday, I've done 53 of those interviews. So
look at y'all. That's remarkable, bro. So, wow. If I could ask here, what are 3, like, I know you over 50 interviews. If you had to distill the top 3 things that you've learned from all your collective interviews, or some maybe there's a theme or some things you've seen because using your gift of pattern recognition, right? I'm sure you recognize some kind of patterns. Is there something that you've seen that maybe the top three you could give us?
100%. So, first and foremost, I want to give credit to a gentleman named Mark Stern. He was episode 9 of the podcast, and he
That's
has a
my
company.
guy,
Yeah,
Mark.
he's awesome.
Mark.
So he has a company called, I believe, Custom Box Agency. And I went to Bart's event in Idaho. And when I went to Bart's event in Idaho, he was a speaker there. And he handed out this thing. It's called the Activate deck. And it's literally a deck of cards. And in there are 4 prompts. And I think that this was God kind of helping me guide the conversation on the podcast. So I took the framework that he delivered through this gift at this event and started implementing it more. So the pattern that I initially recognized was different than the one that God kind of helped me cater a little bit more. So first and foremost, I recognized that every single person had an offer of some kind that solved a specific problem, and they niched down to help a very specific group. The second thing was that they had some kind of system, be it a funnel or other things, to actually sell it. And then the third thing was they had a way of getting discovered, right? Some kind of gasoline in the car that actually allowed the car to move. Because you could have the best Lamborghini in the world, but if you don't have gas in that gas tank, it's going nowhere.
That's
Like,
right.
yeah. And so that was the biggest issue that I had for the longest time, and not understanding that,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny looking back on it now. But the thing that I was missing that this deck of cards gave me was a fourth piece, which was the fact that, like, you know, I think when people think of business, at least this might have been myself, like when I first started, it felt very like I was afraid to make sales and all this other stuff because it felt pretty transactional. And I'm so, like, I really care about people. So like the last thing I want to do is like take somebody's money and do a bad impression of some sort. It's like, so that put a lot of resistance there. So the fourth thing was actually like nurturing those relationships, like
Mm-hmm.
actually taking the time to build them out, having some kind of sequence where you add value first,
Right.
really take the time to pre-qualify and things of that nature before you take on the people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of entrepreneurs make, and myself included, in the beginning, was getting myself into a position financially where I needed the money. And as a result of it, I maybe didn't do enough pre-qualification sometimes. And so
Mm-hmm.
it landed me with not the best clients right out the gate. Um,
We all been there.
but yeah. So that framework of those 4 things looks like having a way of getting discovered. Every single person has an answer for that. They have a way of nurturing those relationships with the people that are discovering them. They have some kind of system like a funnel or whatever to capture their information. And then finally, they have something that they're selling. So the pattern that I saw within this framework after doing 53 of these interviews with people who have made 7 figures plus in their business is the fact that it is a very, very, very simple, like I cannot express this enough. It is a very simple answer. One thing for each of these 4 things. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When I started, I wanted to have a YouTube. I wanted to have an Instagram. I wanted to be making this kind of content, this kind of content. I wanted to be running ads. I wanted blah, 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 blah. Right. That is going to distract you from being able to do the one thing that is actually going to work, because now you're trying to master 50 different skill sets, when instead, if you just mastered one and
Mm-hmm.
then you had your system set up, like, it's going to work.
That's it.
But yeah, so that's the first thing. And then to give an example to that, I like to go back to episode 5 was with a gentleman by the name of Dave Cousins,
Mm-hmm.
and he does credit repair. He helps people with credit repair. So his 4 prompts, right? How he got discovered, he made YouTube videos, and he just stuck with that. He's not trying to do all these fancy other things. He's just making YouTube videos based on the problems that people have around credit, right? And then how he nurtures them is by giving them a free, I think it was a credit score calculator or something of that nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what they do is they go to his funnel, which is how he captures their information,
Yeah.
and he proceeds to um, give them this free calculator. Now they have watched his video, they know how to do it, they got the resource, they're happy. Now he's got their information, and all he does is follow up with more information, and then he offers his digital products on the back end, and that's it. And that's his whole process, and he doesn't stray from that. So once you set those up, now all he has to do is show up and do YouTube videos. End of story. and it's crazy.
That's it. That's game. Wow. I hope the listeners are really locking in on that. Like you just gave a tremendous wealth of knowledge because you've essentially been like the Napoleon Hill, right? Interviewing all these people and then gathering it and distilling it to the people. So I hope listeners you rewind everything that John just shared because he gave you a key concept to help you to progress. So John, like you kind of took us already through discovery, right? Because, I mean your discovery of pattern recognition. And then you went into the development, the process of becoming who you are, and it sounds like it, like you said, that moment where God talked to you about tested faith. You went on a journey, and you passed the test by taking these leaps where you didn't know how you were going to get there or how you were going to get to the next step. So, in the process of discovery, you've developed yourself to a level of mastery. And I would ask this, and then we're going to go into a little bit of distribution and marketing and how you market what you do today. But how do you continue to enhance this gift of pattern recognition? What do you do to do that and sharpen it?
That's a great question. I don't think I've ever actually been asked that question. Um, I think the biggest thing is like I intentionally focus on trying to find patterns, and then I try to keep things relevant to the path that I'm on. And like if somebody came to me and started telling me like all these great things about ad spend and all this other stuff, like that's great. And maybe I can see some patterns in it and stuff, but it's like you got to keep your blinders on, and focus is like the big thing of the season that I'm in right now. Like per the example I just gave a moment ago about those four things, everybody found their one thing that they enjoy doing and they locked in. And so like not getting distracted is like the key right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you got to do your testing in the beginning. You're like a mad scientist trying to figure out what's the perfect four piece for you. But then once you have it, like lock in, put the blinders on and just go for it. So a lot of what I'm doing right now is trying to take the patterns that I have found, because it's one thing for me to have them and to be able to recognize them, but it's another for me to teach on them and to share that with other people. So the first way that I'm trying to do it at this particular moment is through the podcast. I try to ask relatively similar questions to
Mm-hmm.
guide the audience through the answers that the people have to this, so they can draw their conclusions of like, oh wow, everybody has an answer for this,
Yeah.
everybody has an answer for that, and like almost as if that is like the guidebook. So then the next layer that we're doing is kind of behind the scenes thing, a little hush hush, but we might be taking some of that podcast stuff and turning it into a literal book, like a guide. So that's the next iteration.
Love it, man. Love it. So speaking of the podcast, man, how can people get plugged in with what you're doing? And they say, "Hey, I want to go soak up all this game and all this wisdom that you've been putting out there." How can people plug in, and where can people plug in?
Yeah, I think the best place to do that is to go to 2ccnewsletter.com. That's the number 2 and then ccnewsletter.com. It's just a simple opt-in page. Ask for your name, phone number, email. The reason we do that is so that way we can give you daily updates every day on what we're learning on the podcast from these interviews we've done. We try to include like a soundbite from every episode, so that way you get like the best gold nuggets from it and really distill down that hour-long information into one quick little email. And from there, there's also like at the very bottom a link to each of the episodes. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to get access to like the YouTube and everything else that's on. So it'll be good.
That's awesome, man. I just did it myself, and I'm excited for listeners to get access to this. So again, 2cc newsletter, the number 2.com, and get access to this because John is an incredible podcaster, and it just wisdom of this gift of pattern recognition. He's able to help you to really get clarity. I had an opportunity to be on the show, and I'm excited for that to come out. And just you'll see it on display, listeners. So there's no better way than to experience John and his guest than going and joining in this newsletter. So John, I want to ask you a question that we ask on the show. It's one of the final questions we ask, and you weren't prepped for this. What's the difference between one's gift and one's purpose? One's gift and one's purpose.
That's a great question. So part of the way that I think about it is somebody's gift. I don't I don't think it's theirs. First of all, like I believe in God and I believe that we came from Him and He has a purpose for us in this life. So God gives us an assignment and that's our purpose. But if that assignment is something that is of similar status to God, and that's why He's tasking us with one because He's greater than and He wants to help. It's like, or just simply to, some rite of passage or however you want to see it, right? That assignment is bigger than us in our current form. And so the gift that He gives us is the gift that helps us complete the assignment. And so when we become aware of the gift that we have, that's when we can start using it to do God's work. And what's funny about it is on my journey, the longest time in the marketing space that we're in, you hear the idea of health, wealth, and relationships. And like, I thought I was in the wealth space given my background with investing and everything. And it literally was not until the FHL that we just met at about a week or two before that that I realized I'm not in the wealth space. I'm in the relationship space. And that has completely changed the entire tune of everything that I do. And all of a sudden, just from that, like the exponential growth, it's like a literal rocket in terms of like all the doors that have opened as a result of that. So really taking the time to look at like not only what are the things you're good at, but like what is the direction God's trying to take you in? And like if you submit to Him, what is the one thing that you can always rely on as a gift that helps you progress in that assignment? That'll help you to do that, I think.
Wow, brother. You dropped so many gems, so much wisdom. Is there anything I didn't ask you about or anything on your heart that you'd like to share that we didn't cover?
I think one thing that I would like to illustrate is what God can do in your life if you submit to Him. Um, I want to finish the story of those three doors. So I told you about the first two.
Yes.
The third one, this is the one where I saw God act in an inarguable way. I mean, obviously, I already talked about the viral video, the getting the money in that capacity, but like, dude, this one, it gives me chills. I'm already getting them like right now. You, I believe, are familiar with the Inner Circle, right?
Yes.
So it's a program that allows 100 people in there, costs 50 grand a year to be a part of.
Right.
I don't have the money for that. After FHL the second time, I started the podcast, went through lots of highs and lows and all that stuff. And what happened was I got invited by Chris again to go to Bart's event in Idaho. We go there, and my girlfriend last minute had on her heart that she needed to be there as well. Bart offered to put together this program that she felt compelled to buy, and she did. And as a result of it, what it did was it led us to Vegas at the same time as the event FHL International. So for anybody who hasn't been following this stuff, Funnel Hacking Live had a um, virtual only event where the only people allowed in the room for the event was Inner Circle members, which again, the buy-in is $50K a year. There's only 100 people out in there. I didn't receive an application or anything like that. And to tie this back to the video, that third door that this guy talks about, there's the manual door requires effort. Second door is timing. It requires, patience and timing. Third door, it's an automatic door. All you have to do to get through it is show up. And that was his whole message. And so this third funnel hacking live that's taking place is a place where I don't have access. It is impossible for me to get in the room. There is 100 people already in there. Costs $50,000 to be there. I don't have the money, and we show up in Vegas. And when we show up in Vegas, we're doing the program with Bart, who is a member of the Inner Circle, and we ended up in passing happened to run by Russell Brunson, the man himself who's running the event, and him and Bart are really close. And the next thing I know, we're out at dinner one night, me and the other several people that are part of the program, and all of a sudden we received this WhatsApp text, a video from Russell and Bart himself explaining the idea that like, hey, like you know, you guys are all planning to watch it virtually anyway. Why don't you just come down to the studio and like hang out? And we're like, what? Like, that's insane. I need to be in the room per God's thing about this podcast. I need more podcast guests. Like, this room is filled with nothing but 2 Comma Club award winners. Like, yeah, let's do it. And
Wow.
like, through God's grace, he called my girlfriend to go to Idaho. He called her to take the leap of faith of investing in herself to get this program. And then that led us into this room where we now got all these new connections and everything. And it was just like insane. So God asked, or rather prefaced in the beginning, the idea of the difference between blind faith and tested faith. And then he showcased those 3 steps that he was going to do, the 3 doors. All we had to do was show up and it worked. It's insane.
What a beautiful symphony. I mean, just like an orchestration of God's goodness and favor in your life, man. Wow. Blessings, my brother. Just continued blessings. And thank you for sharing your heart with the people. I was blessed. I know they were blessed by it. And yeah, we're going to make sure that people plug in, get connected to the newsletter, get connected to your podcast, and keep up the great work, bro. It's amazing. Thank you for
I,
being on the
pre-
show.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time today, dude. And you're crushing it on this. So you keep up the good work too, my man.
Thanks, bro. Humble.